words of the state, recently I found my heavily fortified and guarded and otherwise pristine inbox contaminated by an electronic pathogen from some right-wing libertarian lunatic nutjob. And when I say recently, I mean the email was dated January 20, 2014. Now, of course, all electronic correspondence intended for me is vetted by tribunals, committees, advisory boards, and the like, and normally, something as toxic as this would have been set on the progressive pyre without me ever having to be offended by even the knowledge of its existence. The author then being hunted down and harassed, vilified, censored, oppressed, bullied, gagged, bound, beaten, and canceled into oblivion by the morally superior, tolerant, and inclusive progressive Twitter mob. But for reasons which several other tribunals, committees, and advisory boards are still investigating, this particular email wormed its way into my inbox yesterday, ruining what had otherwise been a very creative and productive day for me, which began with me jetting off to New York to deface and destroy priceless works of art while participating in a Just Stop Oil protest before flying back home to join a march protesting a proposal to open a nearby nuclear power plant that could serve the energy needs of everyone in North Georgia while providing thousands with employment opportunities. So I shall now endeavor to read this email to you, but be forewarned, it is quite toxic and problematic. Dear Reverend File, over the weekend I happened to catch your show on Constantinople Public Access, sandwiched between North Georgia All-Star Wrestling and Blue Ridge Championship Wrestling. I must say that, as an engineer and a budding inventor, I take issue with a lot of the seemingly unwarranted and empirically unfounded praise you were heaping on socialist states. If we were to look back at the last 100+ years of human history, almost all of the great inventions and technological progress has been made by individuals working and operating under the construct of free market capitalism. Indeed, now that history has afforded us some perspective and a large enough sample size, it seems logical to conclude that when the state assumes control of the means of production and an individual is denied their rights of ownership and their ability to profit from their own ingenuity, human invention completely stagnates. Does not the incredibly rare breed of human being who possesses the kind of invention that drives our species forward not flee from socialist states for this very reason? Was that not the impetus behind Marxist states feeling the need to erect walls and restrict their own citizens' ability to travel and move freely? Where are the revolutionary products that originated in collectivist economies? The irony of watching a man squeezed into a quadruple XL Nike tracksuit, it's actually bigger than that, and the latest Air Jordans, using a high-definition video camera to film himself eating fast food while playing on his phone and bragging about the new Corvette he just purchased, broadcasting his anti-free market capitalism message onto the television screens of everyone in the Constantinople area almost made me laugh out loud in its absurdity. Anyway, the real reason for this email is I was hoping to persuade you to shorten your show from 60 down to maybe 4 or 5 minutes, as the latter seemed to be more than enough time for you to consume your 30-piece bucket of chicken while calling all of your detractors lunatics and nut jobs. Take care. Now, leftist believers, I share this email with you not to discourage you, nor do I share it in the hopes that the manner of speech and the sentence structure might bring to your recollection a potential author that we may then hunt down and silence. For the author of this missive is known to me, and thankfully, he died a violent death a couple of years ago. Antifa has been dispatched to desecrate his grave. No believers, I share this email with you because I want you to know that this is not the first time some right-wing lunatic has made this argument. Nor is it the first time some capitalist nutjob has shared with me a long list illuminating the dense forest of technological advancements that grew out of capitalist countries compared to the vast desert wasteland of human ingenuity that saturated socialist states, waxing poetic about electricity and light bulbs and telephones and televisions and airplanes and automobiles as they are wont to do, thinking all the while that it may sway my faith. But I am proud to say, believers, that my faith is unshakable. No, I share this with you to let you know that there have been many technological leaps and applications of human invention that have occurred under the utopia of state-run, centrally planned and nationalized economies. The rotisserie rat trap and Kamado grill. Hector Villarreal was a successful orthopedic surgeon, one of the very best in Caracas, and had even operated on some of the Venezuelan national football team. Unlike many of his peers and the rest of the intellectual capital that foolishly fled Venezuela shortly after Hugo Chávez's socialist reforms, creating the largest refugee crisis in the history of the Americas, Hector decided to stick it out and soon found his annual salary reduced to that of a cab driver. Riding his bike home from work one day, he stopped at 3 separate supermarkets and, having found each one to be picked clean and bereft of any edible products, he decided to head out into the jungle and forage for food. A perfectly natural and reasonable thing to expect of a highly educated man living in the 21st century in a country with a year-long growing season and natural resources that are the envy of the world. But he soon found out that while a completely banana-based diet may work for vegans, protein deficiency was causing health problems for he and the other human beings in his family. Starvation being the mother of socialist invention, he devised a wonderful new rat trap that both baited, killed, and then began slow cooking the rodents in a ceramic grill of his own devising. Once news of this device reached the Venezuelan government, armed, jackbooted government thugs were dispatched to expropriate his property, since his ingenuity didn't belong to him, but rather the state. Luckily, he would not have to watch his family waste away, as he and his family were soon massacred in a home invasion as Caracas slipped into destitution and chaos, becoming the most dangerous city in the world. The growth enhancer. Park Min-joon was born in a Nampo hospital. Always large for his age, his continued growth would stun both his family and doctors until he eventually topped out at a staggering height of 4 foot 10 inches. Huge for a North Korean malnourished male living in the Democratic People's Republic. The starting center on his high school basketball team, he had always been athletically gifted and harbored secret dreams of one day escaping to Russia and trying out for a professional team in the Russian League. Knowing that his stature would be a hindrance outside of the socialist enclave in which he was caged, he set about devising a means of elongating his skeleton beyond the 58 inches that superior genetics and a diet of grass and tree bark had blessed him with. And so it was that he created the growth enhancer. Ostensibly a modification of a medieval rack, conservative application realized slow but steady gains. However, word of the device eventually reached the Kim regime, who expropriated it and turned it into an implement of torture designed to elicit confession from any citizen suspected of sedition. Ironically, the first citizen subjected to the device was Park Min-joon, whom was effectively drawn and quartered by his own invention. The high jumper. Sabina Klein was an East German woman who, after being exposed to contraband copies of Western films on VHS, soon realized that life in capitalist countries differed greatly from the Marxist lies and propaganda she had been spoon-fed by the East German state. Growing weary of a life lived cowering in fear from the secret police, and after having had friends and family mysteriously disappear in the middle of the night, never to be seen nor heard from again, she decided to leave East Germany. Of course, expatriation from a socialist state is often not so simple an endeavor. Escape attempts often ended in death, and those who were captured trying to escape lived to regret their failure. Knowing that she would need to both avoid the hordes of heavily armed thugs patrolling the wall that had been erected to imprison her, as well as stay below the radar horizon, she devised an ingenious device that would allow her to jump from East Berlin rooftop to rooftop before eventually leaping over the wall altogether. Ostensibly, it was several pogo sticks attached end to end to create a mechanism capable of achieving a vertical leap that would make a laboratory-created, chemically enhanced East German Olympian envious. However, one sharpshooter just happened to spot her at the last second, lodging a bullet in her head as she made her final jump, her lifeless body landing on the western side of the wall, she having finally made her way to freedom. So leftist believers, this weekend, after you cash your paycheck from the employer you view as foe, after being forced at gunpoint to hand over a significant portion to the government you view as friend, and after getting on your laptop that's a product of free market capitalism, to hit up your favorite online retailer that's a product of free market capitalism, to purchase some goods that are products of free market capitalism, while listening to music produced and recorded in free market capitalism, delivered to you via a service that's a product of free market capitalism, and then ordering some food from a restaurant that's a product of free market capitalism, delivered by a service that's a product of free market capitalism, by a capitalist driving a car that's a product of free market capitalism, and then playing some video games that are products of free market capitalism, and then turning on your TV that's a product of free market capitalism, and then accessing your favorite streaming service that's a product of free market capitalism to binge your favorite show that's a product of free market capitalism, and then accessing your phone that's a product of free market capitalism to get on your favorite social networking site that's a product of free market capitalism. Remember to include the above socialist inventions into your post about how much you loathe free market capitalism and how much better your life would be if you didn't have to live in an oppressive capitalist country.